When I first got on some bigger sets and I started to work with veteran actors, I noticed a number of things that they did that formed me into a more seasoned artist. And one of these things is they were particularly aware and sensitive to the story and the character, and if those two things suffered in any way. So if there was something that was written that didn't fit with either of them, they'd speak up and they'd try to talk it out a bit. Maybe an adjustment was needed. It was always respectful, and it only helped further the story and support the character in it. But these actors, they seem to know and understand character and the progression of story so well, probably because they've told so many of them, you know, this needs to be said at some point, or she needs to do this in order for her to say that. No one, especially writers, like to have free input and changes to their work, obviously. Our job as actors isn't necessarily just to memorize lines and deliver them believably. Sometimes our job includes analyzing the writing and speaking up when something like the lines or beats need a bit of an adjustment in the name and in respect of the story. If you've ever done a live reading of a new work, the number one objective is for the creative team to hear everything live with actors to see if the writing works. Actors will always be asked by the writers afterwards, what did you think about the writing? What did you think about the character? How it flows? Any points that need polishing? Why do they ask us this? It's because as actors, our job is to know human beings to a point of such truth that an audience member suspends disbelief and is brought totally into the story, knowing full well it's something written and performed. It's up to us actors to bring that authenticity and help the story along based on what we know about characters and the story that we're telling. Tread lightly though, this doesn't give us permission to change things willy-nilly. More often than not, chances are the script has evolved through a multitude of versions and is ready to be shot in its perfect form. But we know when something doesn't work, or it doesn't sound right, or doesn't feel right. A good actor is a great storyteller, and their voice has been honed for a reason. So here are some more things that I noticed that true pros did. Number 2, on set, they were carefree and casual. They didn't walk around nervous or totally absorbed by the scenes that they were shooting. They could separate the world off screen and on. They had an air of zen regardless of how intense their scenes were that day. 3, they weren't hungover or hopped up on caffeine. They took care of themselves, their skin was ready for the makeup chair, and if it were needed, they brought wardrobe that was requested and they communicated thoroughly with production. Number 4, they got to set before their call time and were ready to roll at their call time. This is a common misconception as most actors will pull into the parking lot at the time on their call sheet. They didn't give more reasons for the second AD to stress. They're consistently punctual, they were ready to roll. Number 5, if there were multiple takes of the same camera placement, these actors offered slight changes so the editor and director could play with alternate ways that their lines were delivered in the editing room. Number 6, in the same vein, the actors were able to be consistent if they needed the same exact scene in a new take. They also knew continuity, such as knowing where their hand was placed at any given time. On smaller sets, they were manning their props, taking off, wedding rings, or wearing the same watch that they did the day before, knowing that perhaps maybe there wasn't somebody there to keep that stuff straight. They had an awareness of the camera and their marks. They knew where they were on the plane. This is their 1. That's their 2. This is their 3. They knew and communicated that to the AC. Number 7, they gave clean takes. This means not talking over someone else's lines so the sound and editor could capture it clean. They could also raise the intensity of their voice without the volume peaking, making more work for the sound person and the editor. That is an art in and of itself. Number 8, this is probably the most important thing. They were not cynical. I think actors, especially those who have been doing it for 10 years or more, they can get burnt out. They can harbor negativity, usually because the industry has taken a toll on them. The best veteran actors still have their light. Maybe they lost it at some point, but they found it again. Amateurs were closed off. They were isolated on set. Their energy could be felt, and that affected the vibe of the set. Number 9, they didn't complain, but if they did, they waited until the mics were off. Number 10, they did their homework. I had a stretch of time where I didn't quite care enough about my work that I was doing. One film, I didn't even read the script because my role was so small. When I was on set, I was reacting to one of the characters, and the producer shouted from Video Village, she's dead, right? You can't hear her? I was mortified. These are just a few ways to come off as a pro and to be a worker amongst workers.